Today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in Arkham Horror, the card game. This is a cooperative game, mostly for 2 players. We played it with 4 because we combined 2 copies, and it's similar to many of the Arkham Horror card games put out, or Arkham games put out by Fantasy Flight, in that a lot of bad stuff happens to you, and you do your best to deal with it and survive. Like in many cooperative games, one element that I really like about this game and cooperative games in general is that the condition in which you lose the game is diametrically opposed to the condition in which you win the game. So in the first scenario that we played, an accumulation of doom tokens would end the game for us, and an accumulation of clue tokens would win the game for us. I like that those two, you're always kind of struggling between trying to prevent doom from adding up and to try to get more and more clues so you can actually win. The thing that takes Arkham Horror to the next level in my mind is that there are 3 cards in each of those conditions. So there are 3 doom cards, or whatever they're called, and there are 3 success cards, or whatever they're called. And you, at the beginning of the game, you read the top doom card, and it tells you some story elements, some bad stuff that's happening, and it gives you some mechanisms that you need to remember. So like it might say at the end of every round, put a doom token on this card, or when a monster deals damage to you, put a doom token on this card. And this is where the cool part comes in, both that story element, but also that there's a threshold to it. So it'll say like, once there are 3 doom tokens on this card, put it aside and reveal the next doom card. And the next doom card, it's not random, it's in a specific order, and it escalates. So it might add other conditions for when you put doom on the card, and it will require a higher threshold. So the game early on can move quickly towards a bad doom situation or a good success situation, or both. They can happen at the same time. But every time you cross that threshold, it takes a little bit longer to move to the next threshold. So you're stuff happens right away. You're thrown into the mix right away, and you have to deal with this stuff. I really like that sense of escalation and story, both in terms of the theme and the mechanisms of the game, because it's not just a static thing. It's not just a track that you're putting doom on, and the first doom that you place doesn't mean anything different than the last doom you place. There's that escalation of there's this card, let's deal with it, let's do our best with it, or let's try to succeed with it, and then you move on to the next element of the story. I also really like that those thresholds kind of give you short-term goals to target, because all that really matters is that threshold. It's not a meta threshold. It's not a total of 20 doom tokens. It's just 3. You have to deal with 3 and try not to get 3. And so you can kind of rally around that idea. Let's try to get, you talked to the other players, let's try to get those 3 clue tokens right now so we can move on to the next card. Or let's try to prevent if we can prevent 1 doom token from getting out of this card, we're good for another round. And I really like that those are those escalating thresholds. I love when cooperative games add this element of story and tie story to mechanisms. I think Arkham Horror does this really well in that particular mechanism in particular. And so I'd love to hear your favorite mechanism in Arkham Horror, the card game, if you've played it, or your favorite mechanism in a cooperative game, particularly one that has these diametrically opposed loss conditions and win conditions that may escalate in some way. I think the only other one that comes to mind right off the bat, I'm sure there are others, is Legendary Alien Encounters, or Legendary Encounters Aliens, which does have a similar story element where you're progressing across 3 story cards, and they add some more story and some new rules. And you're trying to, I think you're trying to trigger those cards in Aliens, instead of the push and pull of trying not to trigger some and to trigger others. And that's a game that I really love. That's one of my favorite cooperative games, really. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments about this type of balancing act and escalation in a cooperative game. Thanks.